could be internet issues. Honestly, there could be a lot of issues. It's good to know how to explain to the client that, okay, this is what I'm going through now. Give me a couple of days, hours, weeks to sort of sort this issue, and then we can get back on track. Then another thing is to show empathy, right? Like I said, if a client can show empathy for you, you should also be able to show empathy for them, because, like I have said, they have an idea in their head. Not all of them know how to express these ideas. So it can come across as they are being vague with their feedback, they are being vague with, what they're trying to explain. Maybe there's no documentation, there could be different things. So you should try as much as possible to understand them. So I have a boss that will tell me, look at your client as if they are your parents. They be patient with them, because sometimes they have this thing in their head, but they can't just express it. So, you know, when they are feeling like they are being frustrated, try as much as possible to find a way to let them know that, okay, I understand why this might be frustrating, but this is what I'm trying to get out of you. So take your time and just tell me how it is in your head. So acknowledging their concerns really goes a long way to a lot of clients. Um, then another thing is setting clear boundaries and expectations. I do this even though, I work as a full-time staff now. I try as much as possible to set expectations with my boss, my line manager, such that everybody knows what's going on and everybody agrees on how to move forward and what to expect from who and where and the timeline of things, right? So it's always good to do this so that you don't disappoint. So steps to doing this is you define the project scope clearly. So you say, okay, this is what we are trying to do. These are all the things that what we are trying to do contain. So if you are trying to do a dashboard, you sort of make a list of everything that will be in the dashboard. So there's a scope you know of projects. Not that in the middle of the project somebody comes and then says, "Oh, I have this idea, let us have it," right? It makes the project longer than it should be. So it's always good to define the project scope. And what I use to define project scope is usually like a document, an agreement. I have a lawyer that helps me draft an agreement, but if you cannot afford the lawyer, there are like templates online that you can use. I think now you can even use ChatGPT to sort of help you create, you know, a document, a contract document. Another thing I do is, try as much as possible to address scope creep proactively. So what scope creep means is this thing where maybe you agreed task with a client. You guys have spoken about the project. There, you've agreed on the scope. You've made all agreements. You've had discussions. You've been given documents, and then the clients can come back and say, "Oh, can we add this little thing?" Right? And they make it seem like it's just a little thing. They try as much as possible to trivialize it, make it look like it's not such a big deal. They could say, oh, let us add a pop-up here, or let us add maybe one page, and then one page becomes another page, and then another page becomes another page because you did not address this early. It's usually good to address this thing early such that once the client comes and says, can we please add this thing? You are able to tell them, I'm happy to add this, but it will cost you more, and then will have to, elongate the time that I've set. It allows the client to go back and think properly whether the feature or the page they want to add is actually that important. And if it is, then both of you, you set expectations that you pay me for the additional thing that you're adding. Right. So another thing is to establish communication guidelines. So maybe you don't like working on weekends. me, for example, I don't do work on Saturdays and Sundays. Leave that time for family, for friends, for personal outings. So whenever I'm working with anybody, I usually let them know that, okay, I work Monday to Friday. I have times that I work Monday to Friday. Outside of those times, try as much as possible. If it's not life, life and death, do not contact me. If you have to contact me, just drop a message and then I'll, reply. It also helps me to, manage urgent, all this urgent, oh, can we quickly add this, or all this last minute, oh, the developer is having a problem here. Let us add this page to, make it easy. Because some clients will call you at odd hours, right? Somebody can message you at 11 p.m. and say, oh, I paid for your time because you didn't set those boundaries. So it's always good to set boundaries and all of those things. So this helps you in dealing with clients, the tough ones and even the good ones. So everybody is aligned. Another thing is managing feedback and revisions effectively. So I I'm somebody that whenever I'm working, depending on the project, sometimes I charge per screen, sometimes I charge for the whole project. I charge per screens in projects where I feel like it's not a lot of screen, and maybe I don't know or don't want to put an heavy price on it. So when you charge per screen, the money doesn't seem like a lot because maybe you say 100K per screen, and before the person sits down and start calculating, oh, are we going to have 15 screens? Are we going to have 10 screens? You've already gotten away with maybe pricing at that level. So it's always good to, you know, do that. So managing feedback, um, when I do that and I send my project in, so let's say I'm working on a project and then I tell the client, oh, look at this thing. I also set number of revisions. So I try as much as possible to do 3 revisions per, you know, say feature, right? So let's say we have many feature. If I'm working on a dashboard, I set per actions that will be carried out on the dashboard. So we have 3 revisions. So the first revision is to look at in broad, aspect the visual elements I've used in the design. Are you aligned with it? So this usually happens after 2 or 3 screens. It lets you know the, design direction I'm going to be taking. If there are going to be any changes, maybe I'm designing um like a dashboard, like I said, maybe the buttons, the forms, and all of those things. It kind of lets you know whether we want to um change some things in that part. So that's the first time I have like a meeting with the client. So we look at that and then you have one feedback for that. So one revision. So when I say one revision, it's not just revision as in, oh, please change this one or tweak this one. It's usually after the meeting, I tell the client to make a draft of all the changes they want based on the meeting we've had. So when they've done that, so they kind of make it, a documented feedback, right? So once they do that, that's one revision. That's one whole revision. I make those changes based on all the documented feedbacks they've given me, and then I tell them to look at it. So when I tell them to look at it, it's not a meeting. It's just look at it based on the feedback you've given me. I've made these changes. Look at Figma and let me know whether this works for you. And then I also try as much as possible to request specific feedback. There are feedbacks that some clients will give you that would annoy you. So feedbacks like, I'm not just feeling it. Mm, I don't know if I like that color. Or, I'm not just, you know, I showed people and they said it could be better, right? Those are not feedbacks that can help you. So I try as much as possible to like drill down on specific feedbacks. Like, okay, if you say you don't like this color, is there anything in particular you don't like about it? Because there are many colors in the spectrum, and I don't want to be sampling all the colors. Then I go ahead and tell them that, okay, moreover, most of the times clients always, have color palettes from their logos. And for the ones that don't, I just tell them, moreover, this color is based on the fact that you know, the industry you are in, this are the kind of colors that are very peculiar to that industry, and that's why I used it. So you try to let them know why you've made that decision, and you also now hear from them. Try as much as possible to know exactly what they don't like, because if a client comes and says, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it doesn't do anything for you, because you actually won't know what they are feeling even when you make the changes. It also does not let the project move fast, because it doesn't help anybody. They could wake up tomorrow and say they are feeling it, and then the other day they say they are not feeling it again, and everybody, there's just a merry-go-round. So an example is, you could say something like, could you let me know which part of the layout you feel aren't working? Is it the color scheme, is it the layout, or the imagery? And this imagery is like pictures. So if you are designing a website, maybe you use the picture of somebody and they don't like that picture, you can let them know that, okay, I can change the image. Or if you have image assets, you can also let me know. Also, it's always good to circle back with the client, let them know, like, these are the goals that we set when we wanted to start this project, and that's what I designed based on, you know, what you said now changes things. And I hope you are sure about just giving me this particular feedback. So that, it just helps to let everybody, again, manage expectations, and helps you design quickly and faster. Um, Another thing is to focus on problem solving and not blame. I think I mentioned this before. Um, okay, I think I've said this before. Yeah, sorry, I repeated this. Then another thing is preserve the relationship even when parting ways. So as much as you can try as much as possible to do all of these things when you're dealing with tough clients, there could be a particular point when you are just tired. It's like a job, right? When you work somewhere, when you start, it's always, interesting and exciting. But after a particular period of time, apart from money, in your mind that there's nothing keeping you there. And when it comes to maybe freelancing, um, if you draw your contract well, there is always a point where you say, you know what, based on the project outline that we had, I think that we got into this space, and I think that it's time for everybody to just be going, because I feel like the way you work doesn't align with me, and also doesn't just align with how I envision this project going, right? And some clients take it well. I've had a situation where some clients didn't take it well, but I always try as much as possible to not be, you know, to not be rude or fight when when I tell a client, okay, you know what, maybe I'm not feeling it. It could also be that maybe I took on something else that I didn't think would take much of my time, and it's now taking much of my time. It could also be a personal, you know, a personal decision to just say, oh, I've tried my best. Let everybody just be going, right? So it's always good to know when to walk away. And as much as you're trying to walk away, um, it's also good to end things on a positive note. Don't try as much as possible, to don't go and meet the client and say, you people stressed me, or your wala is too much. You message me, odd times. You're always disturbing me. Your feedback are not good. Blah 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 blah. Blah. No, people like to be let down easily. So look at it as if you are breaking up with a woman. Uh, I just feel like this is not working. Everybody goes their way. We could still be friends, but at the end of the day, everybody just, so that I don't disappoint you. And then because of the respect I also have for you, I just think that this project does not align with me anymore. And then after everybody has parted ways, you could also follow for feed, you can also follow up for feedback. What that does is it lets you know your own faults. So after the whole emotions have worn off, because there will be an emotional period after you tell somebody, oh, you know what, I don't think we should continue this project. They would feel like, oh, you've wasted my time. They would feel like they've wasted efforts and all of those things. So there will be that emotional part of it. So you can give it a week or 2 weeks and then reach out to them and say, oh, how is the project going? Um, how is everything? Based on the work we did together, I know that we didn't get to the end. Is there anything in particular you didn't like, you know, that I did while I was working with you that you think I can improve on? Was it the way I communicated with you? Was it how I handle things and all of those things? It's good to preserve relationships. What that does is, um, people get you jobs that your CV or your portfolio probably never get you. Most of the jobs I've done or most of the places I've worked, I think I've only applied in one place. I've not in all of my work experience and work life. I often always just get referrals. So people could just call me and say, oh, I got your number from this person. Oh, I saw your stuff here. Oh, this person told me to call you. And it's because, I've had like great relationship with people. Um, it's not all of them that I've worked with to the end, but one thing is I always try as much as possible not to end, the whole project with a fight. So we will discuss, nothing is beyond discussion. So I try as much as possible to, get feedback from clients and just hear from them, right? So, um, from Michael Berut said, clients can be tough, but if you listen to them carefully, sometimes they have very good ideas hidden beneath the surface. So this could work for clients, this could work for your boss, and this could work for anybody really. Sometimes because of how prepared we are to defend ourselves, we often don't listen enough. And, out in our own way, we are trying to defend our work. But at the same time, there are some times when the feedback somebody is giving you, as much as it might not make sense, at you know, when you properly listen, you can get them to where you want them to go. So clients can be tough. There could be soft ones, there could be tough clients, but at the end of the day, all of them have different feedbacks. It's just the way they deliver the feedback that might be different. There are some clients that, you know, regardless of how much work you've put in, they could come and say, you know what, I don't think I want to continue this relationship, right? And the reason why they do that is sometimes to cause fights, sometimes honestly, it's just because they genuinely feel like you've not done a good service. So it's always good to be as calm as possible. Like they said, customer is always right. And in this case, your clients are your customers. So yeah. So the key takeaways is try and stay calm and empathetic, even in challenging situations. Maintaining professionalism is key. Set clear boundaries, clearly define scopes and expectations, minimize understandings, focus on solutions, prioritize way to move forward rather than assigning blame, and then always be open when you're communicating. Communication goes both ways. It's not just the one person thing. It's not just you always expecting feedback from the client. If the client is making a decision that you think would not help the project in the long run, right? So, they don't know everything. You also don't know everything, but to an extent, the only reason why they gave you work is because they trust that you're a professional and they can't do it. So a client can say, oh, they want to add something, and you just know deep inside you that the experience is not good. So it's your job to clarify and then explain to them and then, you know, communicate with them basically, and then also know when to walk away. So, like I said, it's okay to part ways if things are not working. If you feel like the project is not moving forward, maybe a project that was supposed to take 1 month is taking 3 months and is extending into 4, 5, 6, and you're just tired. because maybe you've already finished money, but they are still on you to do the work and you're tired. You could reach out and say, you know what, um, you've paid me half, and I think the work I've done has covered the half. Let us part ways here. Find somebody else. I could recommend somebody. Not everybody will take it in a good way, but it's just always good to try as much as possible to leave a project when you're tired of it. Because if you don't, what happens is that you won't do your best work, and it will show in the future. The clients will later blame you that you did a terrible work for them, and so on and so forth. So always know when to work away. And then that's all that I have to share. Questions, feedback, anything that you have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tariq, for this wonderful presentation. I think one thing that I hold dear to is whenever you see that it's not working, just walk away. But it's going to be a very hard thing because me thinking about it now, after they've sometimes they may not have been paid, and then you've worked tirelessly. I must collect this money. I must collect this money, and then you're like, let me just leave. It's hard, but then I get where you're coming from, and I understand since you're a professional and you've experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly in UI UX, and then so you understand how this is, and then you understand the importance of doing a very good job. Thank you so much, Mr. Tariq.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
the
quick
house is
one.
time
Just
for
to
questions. If you have any question you would like to ask Mr. Tariq, you can do so by raising your hands, and then through the chat box. You can ask a question in the chat box or raise your hand through the icon that's on the screen, and I would pass the mic to you and you would have the floor to speak. So in next 5 minutes, if you have any question, please do ask now.
yeah, I wanted to quickly say that if you are working on a project, if you are not getting paid, ensure that you're getting value.
So do we have anyone with question? Nobody is raising his or her hands. Does that mean that, well, it just shows that Mr. Tariq has really done a good job explaining everything, dealing with tough clients. But then I would like to ask the question. So Mr. Tariq, let's say for instance, you've not been paid and then you started work and your client keeps complaining about one thing. I'm sorry about that. Please give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. So let's say, for instance, that you've not been paid, and then like you've started work, and then the clients keep complaining and changing one thing or the other. This color is not good. I don't like this layout, stuff like that. What would be your advice? Would you advise that we still walk away, or make sure that we do a clean job, or we come to a compromise? What would be your advice?
So, one thing I always say is if you are, regardless of whoever it is, whether it's your family member, whether it's your friend, whether it's whoever it is, don't start a project except you've been paid, right? I'm of the opinion that um I'm of the opinion that typically if you've not paid me, we are just still gisting, right? So like we're all just talking, you know. You're telling me about your project. I'm saying, okay, makes sense, makes sense. once we agree and I send I send you a scope document and contract. In the contract, it will be stated there that um, the project starts as soon as the first payment is made. So I always lay out my payments in 3 to 4, you know, installments. So first installment based on project. So sometimes it could be 4, sometimes it could be 3. So first one, kick off of the project. Second one, middle of the project, and then the last one, I would not feel like I've wasted my time. Maybe clients can feel like they've paid and they've wasted money or something. But all I would say is at that point you would have been paid